Greetings and welcome to the Mount Rushmore podcast. My name is Jeff, and I'm joined by my good buddies Richard
Hello.
And Michael.
Howdy.
These guys, they do the thing, and this week that thing is the Mount Rushmore of Weird Al.
Yankovic.
Not Weird Al. Jolson.
Yeah.
Lorenzo, the car dealer.
Right.
So, who chose it?
That was mine.
Oh, yeah.
I chose it because I don't know how he just randomly, honestly, it was a Weird Al randomly popped in my head. And I thought, God, we must have talked about him in some way on the podcast in the past, but I don't know if we've ever devoted much time.
Yeah.
Actually, I think now that I think of it, I think that there is a genre of people who, it's like, how can I say this? There are people that are nerds for things. And then there are people that are really, really nerds for very specific things.
Yeah. And
I think that there are the Weird Al people who are really into Weird Al the same way that there are people that are really into They Might Be Giants in a way that
Right.
I appreciate both of them. I'm not the person that knows every They Might Be Giants song, or certainly every Weird Al song. And I think that he in particular embeds himself in your life at a certain age, and either it takes root, or I don't know, maybe you wait until you're in your 40s and you're just oh, he's clever.
I had to go through, I think, a Weird Al reappreciation, reindoctrination, in which I understood how many people and I think it's the same thing with Mad Magazine. You kind of grow out of Mad Magazine, and then you realize that it had influenced and inspired generations of people.
Yeah.
And that even though its product is silly, those people who were inspired by it are seriously inspired. So I think Weird Al has for so many decades told people that it's okay to be weird, to be goofy, to be silly, and
To wear Hawaiian shirts.
I mean, there was a good hot minute for a summer and a half where you couldn't wear a Hawaiian shirt because of some crazy Trump people.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
But
sure.
I think that he is. I think he is. His legacy is he's able to absorb all that.
He's eclipsed them.
He used to request a different Hawaiian shirt from every venue as part of his rider.
Is that right?
And apparently he had so many of them, he eventually had to just give up on it.
Stop.
He had too many of them. People are sending them to him and stuff like that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay, cool. So
I think that also he is just a very fascinating pop culture figure on par with Madonna and Prince, and just kind of universally known.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't listen to his music, but you know who Weird Al is the same way you know who the Energizer Bunny is, or you know
Right.
who Michael Jackson is, and I'm sure all of these people will come up because he's parodied their songs and he's aped them in some degree.
Yeah.
And but he's his own version of them, and he's such a unique version of them that's he's instantly famous no matter what.
Almost seems
strange.
like Saturday Night Live has been there for many decades to satirize whatever is famous at that time or to do its spoof on it. And so it's almost like the court jester. Everybody's kind of looking to see what they will do to poke fun at the latest thing. So Weird Al has been like that for a long time.
I remember there was a Onion article, it would have been about, 15, 20 years ago, that was Weird Al working on lyrics for Living La Vida Mocha.
Yeah.
The whole thing, which is about him working on this Starbucks parody song. But it was so believable because 100% he would do a song that parodies both Starbucks and Ricky Martin.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Richard, you start us off.
All right, I think that the best place to start would be his towering cinematic masterpiece, UHF.
Also on my list.
Okay.
I figured it would be. Let's get this out of the way. Just so many amazing bits and characters. There's no plot to the movie. I mean, I know there is a plot. He's given the deed to the TV station and has to battle Kevin McCarthy to try to, not the Republican, but
The actor.
the actor,
Yeah.
to try and get control of the TV station. But really, it was just an excuse for Weird Al and his partner, what's his name, Dan Levy, I think, or John Levy, I think. Something Levy. Bill Levy? Tom Levy? Jay Levy. Got it.
Just go through every
name. Eventually, I would get there.
Normally, I'd say we'd edit that out, but I think we'll just copy-paste it.
That will be the entire show.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was his manager, Jay Levy, and him wrote it after his second album, and because they wanted to do something in the movie space. And they knew their best bet was, instead of trying to write an actual movie, how do we do a lot of these like parodies and short things and really weird stuff that Weird Al had been doing, like on MTV and things like that.
Is Al TV?
We'll get to that. And I remember watching it and just thinking, this is really... I was too young to know about something like Kentucky Fried Movie.
Yeah, or Groove Tube.
Or Groove Tube or something like that. So it was really like a starter set for that type of comedy. And so many great bits. I mean, Stanley Spadowski, noted racist Michael Richards character, Wheel of Fish, Gandhi 2, just so many great little bits in there.
Conan the Librarian.
Yep.
All of them.
Yeah, they're all great.
Yeah.
It's on my list for the same reason in that I think it, much like his music, he really is able to kind of choose some very beloved and very well-known things and put his own kind of take on it that are goofy and silly. But like so much of his music, it's, I think it became a movie that became like a cult classic because when it came out, it kind of got sandwiched or was kind of preceded by all these other movies in the same year in '89. Batman came out, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, a Lethal Weapon movie, and then Weekend at Bernie's, and a bunch of other like much bigger movies that his was just like. I think that he is a very quintessential underdog.
Yeah.
And I think even in the movie space, it ended up being this weird cult, strange underdog movie that he was never going to get over within that time.
Right.
But you watch it now and it's so great and silly and weird and
the critics hated it. They hated it. Siskel and Ebert both ran it down pretty mercilessly. And Weird Al even basically said, look, this was not a movie for critics. This is like a big, dumb, funny movie. I don't expect critics to like it, and they didn't. But that's okay. Because I think, like Michael said, there's so many great little bits in there. It's highly quotable.
Yeah.
There's just so many. You can get a lot of uses out of UHF.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of the parallels that a guy like Steve Martin, once his comedy albums are so huge, and he was obviously big on SNL. I think Universal or somebody's rushing to do a movie for this guy, and I imagine the motivation is something similar to trying to get a movie out for a rock act or something. So
right.
A Hard Day's Night was this quickie.
Was a quickie.
Yeah.
Thought of as like this quickie cash-in movie. Yeah.
Yeah, and I imagine, they were thinking, well, how do we cash in on this guy? Because he's not, obviously, look at him. He's not going to be famous for that long.
Well, Orion Pictures, because it tested like through the roof, like with test audiences, and Orion Pictures thought this was going to be their biggest movie they'd ever done.
Wow.
And it's kind of the same way that apparently, what's the Yahoo Serious movie?
Young Einstein.
Young Einstein.
Yeah.
Apparently that tested through the roof and then was an absolute bomb. So same sort of thing.
Wow, that's awesome. In a way, it's kind of coming out with something that was a little bit of what he did all the time, which was make short subject pieces that satirize something. But in the feature film context, that's not his milieu, really. He's been a TV guy or actually an audio guy. So cool. All right. So you both had that one. So Michael, what's your second?
My second choice is the song and video for Eat It, which is probably his most famous song, most famous parody, most famous video.
Sure.
Maybe it rivals
Fat.
Yeah.
But I think Eat It was done a little bit better. Eat It is so funny. He is so funny that he has this weird preoccupation with food that kind of covers all of his album. If you look at like almost any album of his, either one or two songs have some sort of food-related thing, whether it's My Bologna or
I Love Rocky Road.
I Love Rocky Road. I wrote I listed them down here. Addicted to Spuds, The White Stuff, Taco Grande. There's your song that
eventually got to it. Yeah.
But Eat It tells the story of and being as a parent with a picky kid now, it really hits home of having like it's a story about a kid that won't eat his food and his parents just kind of going crazy and telling him to eat all this food, obviously parodying the Michael Jackson song Beat It.
Yeah.
And the video for it too, like shot for shot, just remakes.
Yeah.
And it's funny, not all of his videos do that. They don't all go scene for scene, shot for shot to parody a song the way that his songs do. But this one, he's just wearing the same outfit, doing the same looks, obviously adding a little bit of mirth and silliness and falling off things and whatever. But the song is, it's iconic in its own way, the way that Beat It was iconic for Michael Jackson. He won the Grammy for it in 1984 for like best comedy song or best comedy album. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I think it's just his kind of quintessential song, parody song that he does. He does so many different types of songs, but of his parody songs, it's like
that's the Sgt Pepper for him.
It is hearing that he takes special care to speak personally with the artists and ask them if it's okay if he parodies their song. I think it's kind of an interesting thing because he does say if they say no, then he actually wouldn't do it. But it's an interesting thing because Weird Al is always has just a fraction of the celebrity of that person. So I don't know.
Does he though?
Do you
some
think?
of the celebrities, some of the artists that he's parodying?
I would say if you took everything in context,
I'd say he's well known, but I don't think of him as a celebrity.
Do you think everybody who knows Chamillionaire or Flo Rida or Iggy Azalea or whatever knows Weird Al? I would say 1 in 20.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think it's more than that. I think more Chamillionaire fans know Weird Al than Weird Al fans know Chamillionaire.
Okay. Well, I have heard people describe it as a way to mark your arrival. So it's kind of like Laura Keitlinger joking that she wanted to have a drag queen impersonator of herself because that meant she was now somebody.
Right.
Yeah. And for there to be a Weird Al spoof of your song.
I believe Kurt Cobain said that.
Yes.
Did he really?
There's a comment. He was like, "Wow, I knew I made it when Smells Like Nirvana came out." And he was like, "God, finally, if this guy's doing a version of my song, that means it's like the most popular song."
It's received mass media saturation. Chamillionaire went to Weird Al and said, I think it was before the Grammys, was it White and Nerdy or was that Flo Rida? An artist who had Rap Album of the Year came to Weird Al to say thank you because you satirizing my album made it clear that was the Rap Album of the Year. So it might not have been chosen. You might have swayed the judges.
He's the tastemaker.
He's the tastemaker. Like in a way, he's kind of anointed that person the most, highly visible thing. Yeah, cool. What I find fascinating about when you talk about the fraction of listeners who are familiar with one and not the other,
right,
or are familiar with them both, points to a media landscape that is segregated heavily and marketed very directly towards different audiences.
Right.
Unlike the time when Hello Mutta, Hello Fada by Alan Sherman was on the radio, you would hear the Beatles, then the Singing Nun, and the Battle of the Green Beret, then you might hear
Jefferson
Airplane, and then you hear Bob Dylan. Alan Sherman knocked those artists off the top of the charts just because of the way radio was back then.
Right.
Maybe if you asked people, young kids who liked rock and roll, do you want to have a guy singing about camp or Tom Lehrer talking about the Masochism Tango or
He's
something?
the last of the great comedy album creators.
Well,
I mean, because everything now is Netflix specials or something like that. Nobody's making the button-down mind of Bob Newhart anymore.
Yeah.
Or, like you said, an Alan Sherman album or whatever it happens to be, Spike Jones.
Can't, unlike and this is true with news, and I think that's a problem, that we live in an echo chamber. You can't accidentally hear a dissenting opinion. That's true with this entertainment, that there's Weird Al might have been the way some people heard some of that other stuff, through a funny version of that song. So
I think it all went downhill when Ryan Seacrest took over America's Top 40.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what you're saying.
That's
Amish Paradise. Who did that?
That's Coolio.
That's Coolio, okay.
And Coolio, gave him permission, but then didn't he get really mad about it?
Yeah.
And then everyone made fun of Coolio for getting mad, and Coolio had to act like he wasn't mad. It's pretty good.
Weird he said thank you to him or something anyway. But okay, so Eat It.
Yeah.
And then Richard has his second.
Well, you mentioned it a few minutes ago, Michael. Al TV.
Al TV.
The series of MTV and later VH1 specials that started in 1984 and pretty much coincided with every album release he had from 1984 up through 2006.
Pretty good promotional thing for him.
Wow.
I mean, and the early ones up through, the third or fourth one were 4 hours long.
Wow.
They were marathons. This was not a comedy sprint. And basically MTV would turn over the studio and the station to Al, and he turned it into Al TV, and he even had the polka version of the MTV theme music. And they would do just goofy, silly stuff like those kind of interviews, like the itsy bitsy teeny weeny polka.
Yeah.
Or not that. What am I thinking of with it? Who is the guy who did we talked about him on the show, who did the
Dickie Goodwin.
songs where they
would, Mr. Jaws.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dickie Goodwin, yeah.
Dickie Goodwin. He would do stuff like that, these interviews where he'd start interviewing. He'd kind of slice in a previously recorded interview with him allegedly interviewing the celebrity to make them look really goofy. All sorts of commercial parodies, music videos that were kind of surrealistic or out there, or comedy ones, kind of emptying out the Dr. Demento vault for all the music videos that he could find. I remember a lot of Kid Creole and the Coconuts making their way in. And this started, so in 84, I would have been 8, and that's pretty much the perfect age to have an entry way into Weird Al. And much like with UHF, I had never seen anything like that before. It was just it had the feel of someone let the lunatics have control of the wheel for a few hours.
Yeah.
And it was just fabulous.
Yeah.
He was such an interesting guy in that he came up within the MTV space. He became popular as MTV became popular. He, music videos were as much a part of his image, and he had an image as much as he was a song. Like you talked about his Hawaiian shirts and his creepy mustache and his curly short hair, and then eventually his curly long hair, and he is just very definable visually as he is musically.
Yeah.
And I think just him being on MTV is just one of those perfect little fits for people that I'm sure it came on late at night. I'm sure it wasn't something, I don't know, maybe it
was during the day.
It was.
It was like an event type thing.
Oh.
They would promote it. Al TV is coming.
Oh, then never mind.
Yeah.
And that changed to Al Jazeera
TV, right?
TV.
And I personally just it feels like Al to me was never a radio guy. I don't remember hearing, to your point, Jeff, I never really remember hearing Weird Al songs on the radio.
Yeah, just Dr. Demento.
Maybe Dr. Demento. Yeah. Maybe Eat It snuck into the top 40 stations as a laugh. But those videos were on MTV all the time. I mean, the relationship between, I don't know that there are many other artists who have more of a symbiotic relationship with MTV in the day, back when they played music videos, than Weird Al did.
Like a Cyndi Lauper or Duran Duran, or some people who were so visual in their presentation,
Yeah, I mean, but it was the opposite, because, I mean, they were trying to project cool, and Weird Al was just projecting anything but that.
Yeah. That may have also marked the beginning of the end for MTV, because I may have harped on this before. I'm fascinated with that network and whatever it was, but they went from being the loss leader to the most profitable part of that company.
It was Viacom.
Viacom, was it? Viacom? And then you have to somehow beat your last year's. You have to keep beating your ratings. And how do you do that with the same videos? You have the same rotation of videos.
Right.
And that is then you create events. And so you start inventing the the MTV Music Awards and
Spring Break.
Yeah, all these. You have to invent all this crap to give people a reason to tune in. And so I'm sure with Al, they were like, yeah, okay.
Give me more. Well, and it was like guaranteed content every like 6 months to a year. New albums coming out, and just time to give him his 4 hours.
Yeah. Okay, Al TV. All right, so we're at our halftime. So, we, like Weird Al, have been on for decades. And so peep some of our old stuff, Go back and see when we were satirizing breakfast cereals and candies and things like that in the early days.
Back when I still played accordion.
But yep, you still played accordion. And
Michael had his cheesy mustache.
I feel bad because Judy Tenuta accordion. Fuck you. Weird Al?
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, quirky, hilarious.
Right.
She got the short end of that stick.
She should have worn a Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah, complete it. Commit. So download, rate, and review past episodes. We'd appreciate it. And then clearly, if we're talking about Weird Al, we're out of ideas. So come on, give us some of your ideas. Please go on to any of our social handles, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and suggest something. You tell us where to go. You can tell us where to go in terms of ideas. So this would be Michael Winfield's third. Is that right?
That's right.
That's right.
And my third is the alternative polka.
Oh.
I had to talk about a polka.
Yeah.
Weird Al is as famous for his parody songs, or his polkas, as he is for his parody songs. Not so much as famous for his style versions of, like, he does like stylistic songs.
Like Dare to Be Stupid, which is like a Devo song, but it
sounds kind of like it, and it kind of...
It's a pastiche of that.
But his polkas, and usually on every album, he has like a polka medley, and they run the gamut. It's every famous song you've ever heard has been on like one of his albums as a polka. But I think one of his more successful ones, or thematically interesting to me as a child of the mid-'90s, a teenager of the mid-'90s, was the alternative polka that came out on his 1996 album, Poodle Hat, which is just like, it just runs the gamut of, has stuff by R.E.M., by Beck, by Sheryl Crow, Alanis Morissette, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yeah. Like, he just bangs them all out, on a dozen songs that he, cuts into for 20 to 30 seconds or however long it is. And, I think it's like we've kind of talked about. Like, he's this weird zeitgeist sort of identifier. He can pick out the songs and do a version of a song, or throw them into a polka, and you know what's popular at the time by what he's polkaing about, or what he's singing about. He has such a unique ability. You can be like, if aliens came down, they're like, what kind of music do they listen to in 1998? It's like, well, go get a fucking Weird Al album. Right. Go get 1993's Alapalooza, and it's like, oh yeah, Jurassic Park was the biggest thing in the world at that time, and he sang about dinosaurs. Okay, that's what they were into. That's certainly what I was into when I was like 14 or 15, because I loved that. Like, of all the albums I had, it was that, because of, I don't know why. Did I love Jurassic Park way too much? Probably. I had Jurassic Park models when I was 14. I was a huge dork, but like, his polkas are just, he's such a weird, I mean, he's weird. He's a weird dude that picked up, that was given the accordion at the age of like 7. And it became like such a signature thing. And then polka music is so connected with him and the accordion and everything that just became, it's funny, he's weird by name only, but he is so very kind of true to himself. Yeah. He is like a very just an honest representation of who he is, and people might think he's weird, or he might do things that are contrary, but like, I don't know, he's probably just really, outside of like the Hawaiian shirts and all the polka stuff, he's probably just really normal.
If it didn't mean his eventual demise, it seems like he ultimately is going to gain that status of a Mr. Rogers or a Bob Ross or a Steve Irwin as this person who...
Yeah, he might be on like the Mount Rushmore people who like God, I hope there's not something bad coming down the road.
Yeah.
Like him, Tom Hanks, I don't know who else.
Or like I think in his eulogization in social media, David Bowie has been acknowledged as never shying away from portraying his sexuality in his art and advancing the idea of the creative person who's somewhat of an outsider, but a beautiful outsider, as a thing that's glorious to be. Or if you don't think so, go fuck yourself. And I feel like Al is just, he doesn't have that much of an edge, but it feels like somebody, I also say, give a kid an accordion, he's going to be an outcast no matter fucking what. You better, you might as well be weird, because you're going to get weird looks no matter what. All right, so alternative polka. Okay. And it's just one of the many medleys that would be on now.
Yeah, and usually, I mean, they're all polkas, and they're all, a dozen songs in each one or thereabouts, and he puts one on every album. And I think he even said about his polkas, like, if I didn't put one on every album, the fans would kill me. Like, it's the thing that they expect, or one of the things that they expect or look forward to the most. Mm-hmm. I've never seen him in concert. I'm guessing that he just crushes it.
I've heard nothing less than it's a tour de force, just of performance and
on the accordion.
On the accordion, but also costume changes and
movie things.
Yeah, movie things. Yeah. From what I heard recently, he, for each album, might consider hundreds of songs or hundreds of parodies, and so who knows? Maybe those leftovers get woven into.
That's the thing that I liked. Before we go to Richard, that's the thing I liked about the alternative polka one. It felt very much of the year 1996. He has other polkas that have like pulled from different eras and different songs. He did like a Rolling Stones one that kind of pulled from all over the place, and he's has just songs that he's put in a polka and jumped from one to the other. But I think this one felt very concise, very thought through.
It's I think not funny about Ricky Gervais thumbing his nose at celebrities as the host of the Golden Globes or the Oscars or whatever, is he's part of the same ilk. Like, Weird is like this, almost like a heckler in the peanut gallery at the concert being put on by the big famous people. And he's the one who's kind of chronicling this era and jabbing, poking soft jibes at these people. Like, Ricky Gervais, you're part of the problem. Al, you're this hilarious outcast. All right, Manfredi.
All right, so my third one is very similar to Michael's. Instead of polka covers, though, I'm going with his straight covers.
Oh.
Actual Weird Al covers of actual real songs done straight.
Never heard any of these.
Yeah, he, especially in 2018, he did a tour called his Ridiculously Self-Indulgent, Ill-Advised Vanity Tour, which was basically he didn't do any of his parody songs except for in the encores. And it was all of his pastiche or original type songs. Yeah. And then what he would do is for the encore, he would start every encore section with a different cover song, like a straightforward version of that song. And the one that he's done the most over the years, actually, is Radio Radio by Elvis Costello. Wow. Like, apparently he's a huge fan of the song. If he was ever on tour and they would have some technical difficulties or something, wasn't working with the multimedia displays or costume changes or anything later, whatever the hell happened, the band would go into Radio Radio, and they would do that as a way to kind of vamp to cover for time.
Yeah.
And I've got the list here of some of them. I mean, they did Freebird, they did Cinnamon Girl, they did God Save the Queen, I Want to Be Sedated, Fire and Rain.
Wow.
It's just all of these, this total mishmash of all of these different songs. And they're done straight. And if you go and watch them on YouTube, it's weird because you're waiting for the punchline, right? And the punchline never comes. It's just straightforward. And I find that fascinating because if you looking at the list of all the cover versions that he did on that tour and has done in the past, it makes you realize just how much music this guy has, knowledge this guy has in his head, in his curly, floppy-haired head.
Well, that's where it's kept.
That's right. That's why the curls are there. Yeah.
Each curl is another.
It's a song.
Another gigabyte of knowledge that he's maintained. That's why he hasn't cut it in forever.
But he just you mentioned him almost like this rock historian in a way. Someone who in order to do what he does, has to be familiar with every genre of music and every artist, and has to have their finger right on the pulse of things. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah. And so it's almost an indulgence. Does it seem like an indulgence for him to not do the jokey thing? Or
I
just...
I think it was just sort of like a, hey, we're going to do this now. Maybe it's a little bit of indulgence.
Yeah.
But I think it was a little bit of, people have always wondered, hey, could Weird Al do just like a regular album? Mm-hmm. What if Weird Al tried to make a non-comedy album? What would it sound like?
Yeah. I would also say, like, the stakes from a profit standpoint are so low for musicians.
Right.
Whatever.
Who cares?
Yeah, who cares? Winfield, what's your final one?
Okay, I would like to play something for you guys that you can either edit in later.
Oh, sweet.
Nice.
Or I just want to give you the reference point before I start talking about it. So this was Madonna back in the beginning of 2020, in March 2020.
Come on, go. Let's go eat some fried fish. Fried fish. Come on, vote and go. Let's go eat some fried fish. Fried fish. 'Cause there's no more pasta. Oh no. We're gonna eat some fried fish.
And it just goes on
Wow.
like that. And
I'm unfamiliar. It took me a good 30 seconds to realize what song she was singing.
Wow.
and then
She's bad at Madonna. She's
Yeah,
bad at singing
bad
Madonna
Madonna impersonator.
so I'll give you a second. Come back in. So my third choice is
Fourth.
my fourth choice. Thank
Yeah.
you. Back in the beginning of COVID times, in March of 2020, Madonna posted some horrific video of her singing a parody of her own song Vogue, but singing about fried fish. She's clearly either inebriated or on something, or maybe that's just how she's gotten to be.
That's Madge.
That's
She's getting up there, so the brain power starts to go.
And then Weird Al came in and just the next day just dunked on her and just said, "See, not so easy, is it?" And I think that is so in line with Weird Al being kind of gentle about it.
Yeah.
He's a nice guy about it. He wasn't totally awful, but just smart, a little cutting.
Yeah.
And just like, as someone who's also like, done parodies of her songs, and I'm sure has gotten grief from people that don't like parodies of songs or like think that it's easy to do. That's one of my favorite things that he's ever done. It's so simple, and it's just like, like you said, Richard, there's so much work that goes into it. Being a musician is a lot of work. Being someone that has to fend off the paparazzi, as we're doing right now. Someone that has to not only understand the music, write lyrics that are clever enough to actually be put out, that aren't, it's not all, John Lennon. It's not all the most poetic things, but like there's so much effort that goes into it.
You're doing more than drawing a mustache on the Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
you have to repaint the whole painting.
And I think that if I take away anything from Weird Al, is that there's just so much tremendous work that goes probably into everything that he's ever done. And maybe some stuff like, when he first wrote Another One Rides the Bus. Maybe you're just playing there with an accordion and your friend on a turned over bucket, and maybe that was it. Maybe he was probably literally on the bus and thinking of I don't know. But to get where it's from that stage to where he eventually got to, I think I don't know. And to show like to see someone that is even more famous get just just my favorite thing.
He says a friend of Madonna's overheard her say maybe Weird Al should do like a sturgeon. No, like a surgeon. Like a surgeon instead of like a virgin. Like she suggested it, and it got he can track it from actual Madonna friend to his ears, and then so he does like a surgeon.
Maybe he should have done like a sturgeon. Who knows how big that would have been?
That would have been huge. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I find that fascinating. One that, like, if you are Weird Al though, you are probably still like too. Madonna was in that same MTV studio in New York or whatever. You're you're not in the same echelon you are, but like you've walked on the same tennis court that these major
You've been at the MTV Music Awards at the same time, or even the Grammys. I'm sure in '84, if he won a Grammy in '84, she was probably there doing something. Yeah. He was walking down probably walking down the red carpet with a Judy Tenuta type character on his arm, or who knows?
Emo Phillips.
Emo Phillips.
Okay, the final countdown, the final choice.
All right, my last choice is Weird Al's Band.
Okay.
I am fascinated by these guys. Most well known is his drummer, John Bermuda Schwartz, who has been with him basically since Another One Rides the Bus. He was the guy banging on the upside down drum. But of his band, 3 of the 4 guys have basically been with him since the first album. And they've thrown in their careers to the Weird Al machine. Wow. And these guys, kind of like how I mentioned that Weird Al has to know just a ton about music. These guys have to be fantastic musicians to be able to pull off all of these different parody songs or tones songs, I think he calls them, and try to make them sound like
The Thing.
Incredibly, on one album you might have to, or in the span of a couple albums, you might have to do a Coolio song and then also a Nirvana song.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to pull this off. You have to be a musician who's got the skill set and the breadth of knowledge to be able to do that. And I think that's really remarkable. Mm-hmm. And I think these guys just deserve a little bit of a shout out.
Yeah.
For not just their skill, but the fact that they've been willing to put up with Weird Al for 40 years now.
I was looking this up. You guys know I'm obsessed with the Washington Generals. The basketball team that plays the Harlem Globetrotters. So it almost feels, not that they're flunky tag-alongs, but yeah, they probably won't get laid at the after party.
No, this is not the band you want to be in if you're going to be cool guy.
Yeah.
And all these guys are, if you read their biographies that's on the Weird Al website, when they're not touring with Weird Al, they're recording with all these great musicians. Mm-hmm. They have their own Latin jazz combo. They've got all these varied and interesting musical things that they're doing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, every year they're recording a Weird Al album, and every year they're going on an 80-date tour, Yeah. So he has to be a nice guy.
Yeah.
There's no way that 3 of the 4 band members, and the other one is worked with him since 90s, that they would all work with him for this long if he was secretly like a jerk. Mm-hmm. So that gives me some hope that Weird Al's actually a nice guy.
A mensch, yeah.
Yeah.
I think as a kid of maybe 12 or so, or 11, I was staying up way too late to listen to Dr. Demento, and it was a Sunday night in Kansas City. I think Westwood Run Radio would. It was 11. It was too late to be up on a school night. But knowing that Weird Al was a huge fan of the Tom Lahirs and even Tiny Tims or the weird people of music, and it just makes me feel a lot of affinity for it. He's just a guy who had this small dream of having a satire song on Dr. Demento.
That literally he recorded in the bathroom.
In the bathroom, yeah.
At a UCSB, I think it was.
But as a kid, hearing Yoda, oh my God, some guy wrote a fun song about a Star Wars character. God, that's just my Bologna.
Right.
Which was released wasn't by the same label as the
Knack?
As the Knack.
Probably.
Yeah.
That's the easy way to get to the music. You're we got it right here. You want it?
Yeah, you want it? Yeah, he seemed to have so much sincere love for so many dumb things that how can he not be a decent guy? All right. So this is the time. I don't feel like I can't even. Well, we got to do UHF and Wait, did you guys both choose ALTV?
No, I did.
Okay. ALTV, because I never, honestly, I don't even remember it. So that's super cool. Let's do alternative polka, because that's another part of his milieu. And I got to go with the fried fish because I hadn't seen that clip. And
it's something else.
It's heartbreaking, but then that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so this has been the Mount Rushmore of Weird Al Yankovic. As always, I'm Jeff.
I'm Dr. Demento. Actually, I'm Richard.
I'm Michael.
Yay.